Welcome once again to The Lost Signals discusses games and gaming culture, a pretentious, philosophical, pedantic podcast where we focus on various aspects of video games as well as other issues and topics within gaming in general. Guten Tag, and welcome back to Lost Signals discusses games and gaming culture. I am Scott Thurlow, your alternate reality dino riding Hitler, and I'm here with Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Well, I can't say it better than the man himself.
Guten Tag!
And Stephen Amosi.
And I'm Dino riding with Mecha Hitler.
Mm-hmm. And we were discussing weird World War II, essentially, sort of games that portrayed the Nazis as having things that they did not have in real life, and that changed a bunch of shit.
If I may,
yes.
The initial idea behind this was far more ambitious than what we came up with.
That is true, yes, indeed.
But the idea was what would you know about World War II if you only played video games?
Yeah, based upon, yeah.
And then we turned it more into what culture top 10 list of worst things Hitler did in video game history.
Exactly.
Which, of course, doesn't deal with any of the actual horrible things he did. That they just replace it with...
Or sometimes it does, but also adds on some, shit. So
so we took a look at Wikipedia and TV tropes and other research things to look at some strange things that these
those wacky Nazis,
wily Nazis were up to since then. But you really can't talk about weird World War II without Wolfenstein.
Absolutely.
And that was a lot of alliteration right there.
Mm-hmm. I like it though.
So we can actually skip over the initial Castle Wolfenstein because that was a fairly straightforward stealth game. But we can go right into Beyond Castle
Beyond
Wolfenstein,
Castle, yes.
which follows the first. I think this was made in. I can't read off stuff. Yeah, 1984, and it wasn't Occult. It wasn't weird, but you actually bomb Hitler's organization. What followed after this, though, and what's famous for, Steve, would you like to talk at all about Wolfenstein 3D?
Sure. I mean, like Wolfenstein 3D was a very Doom-esque game, where, and if you're watching us right now, this picture of Mecha Hitler behind me is from that game, from that original game, and
rather famous, yes.
You kind of just wander around rooms and kill Nazis and also the random supernatural beings that they have created as well. And it was, I don't know, I remember having a lot of fun playing it back in the day, but it was of the time where, I was pretty young when it came out, so I didn't quite get all the references, I guess, and things like that, but it's just...
Well, I mean, you have to study for many years before you get to Mecha Hitler.
Before you understand Mecha Hitler in full, for sure.
Yeah,
but it is that that type of game, and I don't know. I honestly don't remember much of the plot, if there was much of one. I just remember kind of wandering around
what you just said is
fighting
the plot
zombies,
yeah.
And battling your way deeper until you finally get to fight Hitler in a mech suit.
Now, what's interesting is there was actually a sequel to that. Basically, we're going after the Spear of Destiny. And that had more of a plot than the...
Which is a very famous MacGuffin. If you're not familiar with it, just real quickly, look it up. It's a very famous thing, especially as attached to...
If everything works correctly, we should have some clips playing during the discussion.
You'll see some.
Which I'm kind of padding out right now in order to allow more visuals of it. But... that I think is when these types of video games started going into the occult,
embracing it,
and and as Scott, you can go on with this. Although I don't know, you didn't play much of Return to
Not
Castle
much
Wolfenstein.
of Return, yeah, to be
All
fair.
right, so I'll discuss that first. But in 2001, Return to Castle Wolfenstein came out, and this is when the shit starts going really off
Bonkers,
the wall. Yeah, you fight the Nazi paranormal division in Egypt, fighting mummies, and you find out that then the paranormal division is attempting to resurrect the Dark Knight and Saxon Knights, and you're fighting basically undead and Nazis throughout this entire thing as you're stopping
at the same time.
What's funny is there's sub bosses, but it's actually Himmler behind the scenes of the Nazi paranormal mission. So
I remember watching my friends play that game and like just thinking that it was bonkers. It was like one of the first, like modern age, modern style, like
you are correct.
First person shooters that I remember watching, like probably shortly after like Halo came out or whatever. And it was just nuts.
All right, Scott, would you like to then talk about the 8 years later, the sequel that came out to it?
In 2009, and I remember this. I didn't play it, or like maybe they gave it a demo, but I never bought it, never played the full game. But it was just called Wolfenstein, parentheses 2009. And I swear to you dudes that I thought it had a subtitle, but it didn't. It was just straight up Wolfenstein. And it was 100% like full-on occult shit, like undead, supernatural SS heads, also like zombies, like shit like that, like witchcraft. It was all in there. It was like the most straight up occult. Like they just like fuck it, Wolfenstein occult. Like no more like regular stuff. It's just all that all the time. And actually, so I want to quickly just give a brief actual history thing. Like so, I think the perception is that Hitler himself, like in real life, the actual person, was obsessed and/or like into the occult.
Well, Indiana Jones wouldn't lie to me.
They wouldn't. But since you mentioned, like, it actually was Himmler. He was the one who, like, from what we know, from what historians like can unearth and like the writing, like like journals and stuff, like he was the one who was obsessed with the occult, but more in the sense of like the spirit, like as a symbol of like showing how Nazism and so forth, like that the Germanic Teutonic tradition is like the correct one and also is related to like actual historical things. So anyways,
well, yeah, they tried to breed like Uroks and things like that to get back to
it was shit like that. So like I'm just saying, just in case, just as a quick actual brief history lesson, Himmler was the one more interested in the occult than Hitler. Anyways, 2009 Wolfenstein, all straight up like that, like all the enemies were like supernatural-ified, if you will, in some way. Like throughout the whole game, there were no like even like the Nazi mooks, if you will, like had some kind of like supernatural tinge or element to them, and it was just like, from all accounts, it was like a bog standard like first-person shooter. Like there was no reason for it even to have been made, but yet they did it as a vague follow-up to it, and it just leaned in 100% all the way into the occult stuff. And that's what it was. Like, I don't know, to tell you, like, it was okay, I guess, by all accounts. So therefore, like, that's in the lineage of Wolfensteins, that's where that one lies.
Sure.
And and I swear, like, again, the funniest thing to me is like, when doing my research, I was like, okay, let me make a list. I'm doing my list. I swear it had a subtitle of like, Wolfenstein : something, some kind of play upon it or whatever. It just didn't. It had nothing at all. But I want to take the time to mention here that GV Tropes does have a great one. So when you look up like Nazis plus occultism, it's Gestapo, and that is so good. I love it. It's so good to me. Anyway, so that was 09 was about like 360/PS3 era gen stuff. So that's when that that's what it dropped on for that release for that era, and that was the Wolfenstein they chose to release and the angle they chose to go for there. So
it must be said that we're focusing on Wolfenstein. We'll go into other series, but majority of the World War II games are straightforward historical.
Yes, that is true.
Actually, a surprising amount. There's less occultism than I thought because it's just his.
We'll discuss that later, but yeah, you're right.
But there is two aspects that I noticed the trends that went. I feel as the World War II, they started splitting off into like the Pacific Theater and like I believe one of the Call of Duties had like Russia from Russia's point of view.
Yep.
But the war games, I think, started dying, so they added an element to spice it up. One of them was the Occult. Another one is kind of almost, I would say steampunkish, but like
Advanced
kind of
tech.
tech,
that shouldn't have.
advanced tech. Sometimes combine the two, and then alternate history, which we're going to get into with other Wolfensteins.
Yeah.
So you played the rest of them, right? The
I did.
Colossus.
I played New Order and New Colossus, and yeah, so like it leans like, as I just mentioned, the one trope for Supernatural is Gestapo, at least that's what they call it, and the other one is stupid jetpack Hitler, which Mecha Hitler is basically like. Is in fact that picture, Steve-O, your green screen, if anyone's watching, is indeed like the banner image for it, right?
Yeah.
So like it cuts it up. So yeah, so the new gen ones, the Wolfensteins, it is, yeah, the Nazis won the war. They indeed, like the alternate histories, they were able to invent and or produce the crazy technology that overran the Allies, and therefore they have like the mech dogs. They have indeed not just Hitler has a mech suit. Many other random Nazi folks have mech suits as well, and like other shit like that, right? So yeah, like, and I actually thought, like, I talked about it, or whenever we did the Game of the Year episode that year, I thought it was really well fleshed out because yeah, it takes place 20 years later, 1962 or 3 or something. The Nazis have conquered America and Europe, and their technology is now like overriding everything. And BJ wakes up out of a coma, like essentially, and goes to fight them, but he's fighting against like both like mostly jetpack stuff, mostly futuristic stuff, but like here and there some supernatural shit. Like it like just shows up like, without really a lot of reasoning or explanation from the game itself. It's just there. Like fuck you, do it. Like fight them.
Has any game you played had Himmler's Occult go to war with Hitler's tech?
No, but that would be an awesome idea.
It's got to be the next one.
Yeah,
Someone should do that.
you're
And you heard it here first.
whatever studio makes Wolfenstein, you're free to use that.
Yeah,
for your
Nazi
follow-up.
Civil War.
Yeah. So New Colossus is kind of the same thing. Like it followed the same suit. Like it mostly used again like the futuristic like nobody could Nazi technology has outmatched anything else, and they've already won the war anyway. So it's a guerrilla war, and an uneven one-sided conflict. But yeah, I mean they were good games for sure, but they mostly leaned on that. But here and there they were throwing like a random like ghost Nazi shows up, like sure, okay, like I guess that's there too, for whatever reason it might be there for.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were the later gen ones.
Okay, so
Good.
we're off of Wolfenstein now. So I'm gonna. All right, we'll save Call of Duty for later because that's. I want to talk about a couple of weird ones that I found. Some highlights of World War II. It's a Polish game, which I'm going to butcher probably. Mortar, M-O-R-T-Y-R.
Mortar sounds fine.
2005. This is phenomenal. The year is 2093. Long after Cyberpunk was over.
Way after that, bro. Yeah.
The Nazis won the war, but they did it through time travel. And the result of their time travel is the destruction of Earth through electrical storms and climate change type things. So the good guys send back their own soldier to stop the Nazis from winning the war. So the entire game takes place in World War II, but with a twist that these are future aspects to
It's
it.
basically the opening of the rebels sent back one lone warrior, etc. Yeah.
Somebody should have been sued. What's funny is there's more games in the series, but from what my
Much
research
more
is,
apparently.
none of them have anything to do with time travel. They're just straight up World War II games.
It's so insane.
Uber Soldier,
Until we come to
2006. This one is actually fairly fantastic.
It's a great title too.
Germans are building super soldiers. The German resistance gets one of the robots. This is Terminator 2. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I just realized. It gets one of the robots and basically reconditions it to fight on the resistance side against the other
They
Uber
tied it all
soldiers.
together.
Yeah. Oh my. Wow. This is
Someone
good.
should
This is
certainly be sued.
good. This one is more famous. Turning Point, Fall of Liberty.
Yeah.
This is one of the alternate history ones. Very much like how the newer Wolfensteins took
Mhm.
place after the fall. This is actually the fight in America when the Nazis come over. I don't have much to say about it. Any of you play that game?
No, I mean,
No, I didn't play it.
Like, it exists, sure. If anybody out there has, let us know. But
Tell us.
Okay, I have 2 more for this one. Less to do with World War II, but Command and Conquer Red Alert, which the series is famous for Tim Curry.
Commander, you've rained on my glorious parade. For this, I'm sending everything I've got at you. But I won't let you have the satisfaction of catching me. I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
Now,
It's famous for more than that, but
no, it's famous for the clip I just showed. The plot line of Red Alert is Einstein. We have time travel again. It goes back in time to displace Hitler from the time thread,
timeline, yeah.
which causes the rise of the Soviet Union and the fight between
The Cold War accelerates.
the Red Alert.
Stop playing with that thing. I've just got to adjust this. Give me the sequence calculations. Now! They're already done.
I wonder if it will be raining.
Stand by.
Herr Hitler!
Ja, was ist los? Ich habe keine Zeit, hier rumzustehen.
Ja, ich verstehe.
Did you find him?
Hitler is out of the way.
Congratulations, Professor. With Hitler removed,
And finally, perhaps my favorite alternate history.
This one is so good. I never heard of it until Ian researched it.
I'm actually going to play the full trailer to this because I can't do this justice more than it can do it. Is Dino D-Day, released in 2011.
Used to be, dinosaurs were something you found in the ground and put in a museum. That was my job. Fossil finder, bone digger, paleontologist. But while I was digging in the dirt, Hitler and his gang of gene scientists went all in. They brought him back in the flesh. Let me tell you something, Fritz. My buddies and I aren't gonna sit on our hands and let you make freedom extinct. We're putting these kraut carnosaurs back where they belong. In the ground.
Hitler goes back in time, or basically it's Jurassic Park with Hitler.
Jurassic World War II.
And my God, is that not a somebody should have been sued moment?
So amazing. Like, and I had never heard of it until like again, like you figured out, like you found it, like, dude, check this shit out. I'm like, yeah,
This sounds pretty amazing.
So to bring you back into the conversation, Steve, what is your favorite alternate history?
Of the ones listed,
yeah.
I do like the Dino D-Day idea, but oh man, like the what was it, Mortar and Uber Soldier,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
like back to back as Terminator and Terminator 2. So perfect. Like,
Yo, we should all play it as such. Yeah, man, it's a good idea, right? It seems like it's like a good like selling point, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's a good bundle right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I gotta like. Maybe I gotta go like watch the trailers for all these like
And watch our video after I'm done editing it, and you'll see a bunch of stuff.
watch a few Let's Plays or something.
Yeah. All right. So if I'll take it over a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So there's one more, like, technically, as I mentioned, the later gen, the newest gen as of now, Wolfensteins were straight up like more alternate out. But there was a DLC for the first one for New Order called Old Blood, which did in fact specifically, again, have a supernatural tinge. Like there was like basically a golem was underneath one of the cities, and like that was the whole thing like of it. Now, granted, it was a spin-off thing, like side thing, like it didn't really. It only tangentially tied into the main plot.
Just like most of the Wolfenstein games,
Exactly.
tangentially tie in with the rest of them.
But speaking of that as well, so like the one that like I think is most, for me, like the most exemplifying this trope, this like usage, is the Zombie Army trilogy, which was a spin-off from Sniper Elite, which I played Sniper Elite 3 and 4 for sure, and all the DLCs, and there was separate, like, unto themselves was the Zombie Trilogy, which I just bought for like $5, and then they made, I shipped it to you, Steve-O, they made its own separate game just called Zombie Army 4. So the premise is, of course, the Nazis are, like, it's late in the war, and then the alternate reality is Hitler enacts Plan Z. What do you think that might be?
Hey, that's clever.
Yeah, of course. So he resurrects all the dead German soldiers, and in fact, all the dead soldiers of either side of the war, to ostensibly fight for him, that will be the miracle turn, like basically the Spear of Destiny miracle weapon that will turn the tide of the war. But they also turn against him. He gets sent to hell. Like it's B movie. He goes to hell, comes back. Now I've conquered hell. I am now Fuhrer of hell, and I also control all the other dead souls. And it's basically a Left 4 Dead sort of thing. Like it's meant to be co-op. Like it's supposed to be played with, like, multiple people. Now I played them all solo all the way through.
So you're saying Preacher ripped off them?
Yeah, certainly. Yes, yes. I am.
So many lawsuits we got here.
Like,
yeah.
So many people should be sued over so many things that we've mentioned in this episode. Like that'll be its own episode unto itself. But no, like I think, like, I feel as if it's the most, again, like the face of this trope, at least in terms of games. Like even in the wake of the ones we just mentioned. Like, yeah, sure, the Wolfenstein stuff, like people remember that, know it, but like it just embraces it. It's just outright like you versus the Nazi zombie army. Fucking do it. And every boss always is like some ridiculous iteration of Hitler as a zombie, or like in hell, like you go to hell, you fight him in hell, like et cetera, et cetera. But like, I guess I'll say this, like,
so Doom meets
and so forth as you do.
Yeah, kind of. But like, they were really like, because they use the engine for the Sniper Elites, like it works pretty well, and they're pretty fucking fun romps to go through. So,
was it not Sniper Elite that had all of the killing all the stand-ins for Hitler?
They did indeed have that. Like they're pretty known. Like, yo, like if you set your game in World War II hardcore, like you're gonna have to do that kind of shit. And like I think they did it pretty well. Like they'd embraced it. They knew what they were about, and like, okay, here's DLC for that. Here's DLC for the fucking zombie shit. And like, if I had to like ever just like point to one thing that like again exemplifies the use of this, it would be that, because it both was the perfect like angle for it and is a good game. So yeah, like, so I guess I don't know if I want to jump the gun, but the last note I had in my notes is that, doesn't it feel like you guys, I'll ask you this question and you answer. It feels to me as if this trope is used and was used a lot more, specifically in games, than the list we actually just rattled out. So I don't know, like, does that seem true to you or not?
Well, yeah, like it feels like we're missing a bunch of stuff. Or
Yes.
something.
Or like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
I can't think of anything.
sorry, Steve, before I'm like, as if it's more prevalent, as if like, oh yeah, so many things did this kind of stuff.
Well, from what we've learned from this discussion is Hitler's coming back in time to gather all these games and destroy them before we get to play them.
I guess.
Right. He doesn't want anybody getting any ideas.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's stealing all the ideas.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like it did. I thought there would be more games to this than the research bore out, I guess. But to be fair, I haven't played a ton of games where like other than Wolfenstein, and I played a little bit of Zombie Army 4, which was pretty fun.
You played half the games right there.
Yeah, exactly.
It covers like the broad base. I don't know, man. But go on.
I can't think of any other ones, even though like I feel like there aren't there more, but I don't know. I can't think of what they would be.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the last one we haven't talked about, we brought it up earlier, but we haven't talked about it, is Call of Duty Zombie.
Oh, yeah.
Very famous. I think that's perhaps why there's this image of it having a more persistent
I think that might be
base,
right.
because Call of Duty is one of the biggest names in video games nowadays, and that has been included in almost all of the newer
For the
versions of
past
it, yeah.
at least 4 or 5. You're right. Like, yeah, maybe that. I think you're right. That might be what it is. Like, it just
Sure.
feels like, I know, like, not like the research, but when I set out to do this episode and started doing like, oh, there must be so many. I'm sure there's a lot, right? But when I started digging into it, like, it wasn't as many as I thought it would be. And like, granted, like also found like the dinosaur thing was amazing. I did not find that in my own research, but that's like, again, like somewhat.
That was a gem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Somewhat few and far between. Now, I guess I don't want to like rabbit hole ourselves, but the last thing I had, the actual last thing I had on my list is like other medias that used it. So, for example, like the first one I think of course, is something like Frankenstein's Army, which we reviewed, where like the Nazis are messing around.
I think we gave that a pretty high score too.
Yeah.
So I
So
think we gave it a 10 if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And you know what?
or 9 or 10, yeah.
For its genre, it is a great movie.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the fact that like other things other than video games have used this trope a lot more, and that's why we think it would certainly, obviously, if other like film and TV has used it, then video games certainly would. But it's maybe not the case.
Have either of you heard of Rock and Roll Zombies?
I have, yes,
No, I don't think so.
because of you, probably. But
Probably. I might have been the only person to actually seen this film. It's like an 80s, 90s film. It's great.
Chris might have mentioned
but
it.
Hitler basically is hiding out in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre-like family. It is one of the most bonkers movies I've ever seen. We should review it one
I
day.
mean, you got like surf Nazis, like all that shit. Like,
Oh yeah, you got somebody mentioned Preacher before. You got Nazi, or you got Hitler like in hell until he breaks out and like eventually goes back and becomes the boss.
I mean, you guys remember Werewolf Woman of the SS? Well, if you remember that,
Oh my, do I?
it was the fake trailer to fucking Grindhouse and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I guess like I'm just saying like that's sort of more evidence to me. Like it feels like this shit has been used way more than maybe it actually has.
You did put on the list Scott Iron Sky.
Yep, Iron Sky was okay. Like it's fine. Like it's more futuristic stuff. It's more like
Nazis on the moon.
more jetpack Hitler than occult Hitler, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's there. I don't know.
I guess we can look at that. The market is not oversaturated with jetpack Hitlers, and that is something to be happy for.
That means that leaves room for more jetpack Hitler,
For more jetpack Hitlers.
which might make a cool game. Like I don't know. So yeah, like I mean, those are the ones we discovered or researched, or like that showed up at least. And like I said, I expected there to be a lot more of this stuff, even like of the ones I knew. Like of course, Steve Wolfenstein was the first thing that ever comes to mind. It's kind of inescapable. But I was like, oh, there must be like, I don't know, 20, 30 games, maybe 10, 15 that we found, like pushing that even.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just felt like,
Most of those were Wolfenstein.
yeah, and it was interesting. I felt like it felt, at least to me, at least before this, that trope was used a lot more in games and maybe even, as I just mentioned, in other mediums, but specifically that. But like, really, it hasn't been, and perhaps that means there's room to maneuver with it, and maybe we'll see some cool shit. Maybe we'll make it up. We'll make it ourselves. But all I'm saying is, yeah.
I'm just saying, Castle Wolfensteinvania.
Castle Wolfensteinvania.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like, I don't know.
Like Vampire Hitler.
Listen, this is a reference to the original movie. I'll close off with this. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, Steve O'Mine. What We Do in Shadows, the original movie, not the series. Other series good. If you're a Nazi, you're a vampire, you're Nazi vampire, no way. Not cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Like it was a fun little one to do, like a little idea, and we found what we found, and we said what we said about it. Like if you got any other ones that you know of, certainly ship it to us. But I think for now that will do it. That'll be the ones. I definitely want to play the Dino D-Day. It's an amazing name, amazing premise. I might jump on that.
Yeah, it just sounds great. I like.
Yeah.
Everything about it works right.
Perfect line, like, they rolled into like the publisher, like, what do you got? Hitler Resurrects Zombies video game. We're making that. Boom.
You know how you really like Jurassic Park? What if Saving Private Ryan? What if we combined them into the same?
and made it into a game. Here's money. Do it.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think with that, I have been Scott Thurlow. I've been here with Steven Amosi.
Yeah, I gotta get my own mech suit so I can wander around. Shit. I guess I'll fight Hitler with it.
Mm-hmm. And Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Just imagine like those Medusa heads, but Hitler heads.
Hitler heads,
around.
yeah, that's gonna be amazing.
Most frustrating thing ever.
And perhaps you'll see a game like that sometime soon, given our talk. But thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Good night. Thank you for joining the Lost Signals Games and Gaming Culture. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows and more, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.